Today, I'd like to address a lot of my commenters who are asking me to lay out what my different narratives are again across all the different markets, because their narratives are across, geopolitical, America, Asia, Europe, so forth. As you see, we talked about Europe this week. So the first thing I want to say is we're not dealing in actualities or probabilities. We're dealing only with possibilities, okay? So to me, possibilities from between 0 and 49% chance of happening. Probabilities from 51% to 99%. And certainties are 100%. I don't actually think we deal in certainties, and I don't think we should actually deal in probabilities. We can deal in very low probabilities, but mostly in possibilities, okay? And I'm going to talk to you today in regards to my information pyramid, which is data, information, personal experience, opinion, misinformation, and finally, conspiracy theory. And we're going to look at this through the lens of something that happened to us all, the great financial crisis, which in many ways I think was encapsulated by the movie The Big Short. It certainly addresses what I think we should be doing with our narratives, okay? So The Big Short follows 4 professionals. I knew one of them, doesn't matter which one. And in their view of the CDSs. So Gosling figures out by looking at the data that the mortgage market is kind of fake, and he wants to short what they call CDSs, credit default swaps, okay? We're not going to get into what they were. You can look them up. Very few people use them anymore, obviously because they caused the great crash of 2007, 8, and 9, okay? So Gosling figures this out. And then the problem that he faces is that he has to get people to sell him the short, okay? And this is a huge issue. So he meets with people and so forth, and no one believes him. And in the movie, in my opinion, we are Steve Carell. Steve Carell is smart, knows the industry, and yet he is not convinced. So he gets the data from Gosling. He doesn't buy it. But Carell's a pro. He's not stupid. In fact, as I know, he's not stupid. And so what he does is he goes into the data. And you know what? He actually doesn't believe it. So Gosling comes and meets with them and actually builds a Jenga thing on CDSs to show them how it all works, okay? So he took the data and made it into information and gave professionals, real traders, investment asset managers, this information. They didn't believe him, okay? Finally, in the movie, Steve Carell and his team meet these 2 paragons of professionalism. And for the first time, Steve Carell then realizes that, wow, this is actually true. So think about what just happened. He was given the data. He couldn't come to terms with it. Gosling gave him the information, showed him how it worked, couldn't come to an agreement with it. And finally, he has a personal experience. So then he believes and he starts shorting the CDSs. So think about our pyramid: data, information, personal experience. And we know that our opinions and how we make our trades are based 80% upon our personal opinion, okay? So here they go and they short. Now the movie ends with Gosling talking to us saying, geez, for 2 years, everybody attacked me. And they did attack him. They thought he was out of his mind. They were screaming at him. Remember something, his boss, which was Deutsche Bank, he went out and shorted all this stuff, and they wanted to fire him. And what he did was he ended up making him $10 billion during the crash, okay? But they wanted to fire him. And they would have unwound the position, but they actually couldn't unwind them because he had made him too big, okay? So here he is, in the end, holding his bonus check, which I'm sure was huge, and just saying, no one ever believed me. So what does this mean to us? When you're building your narratives, we're not dealing with certainties, and in many cases, not even probabilities, okay? You're saying, what is possible in this world, right? And sometimes it's our failure of imagination that holds us back. So to me, when I look at The Big Short, it's only about one thing: the failure of imagination. They were given the data. He then turned it into information. And only when they had a personal experience did they finally believe him, okay? Here's our problem. Where do we get the data? Where's that information? And then more importantly, we probably will never have a personal experience that would put us over the top. So when you're building out your narratives are based on possibilities. And just like, to be honest with you, I've told you this before, in 2009, I read the book, The Panic of 1907, and I've always had a scenario on the table that we could run to 2029, and yesterday's action by the Fed, I think, is still another data point that we could get to 2029. I know it's 5 years away. I get all that. I've been doing this since 2009. I get it, okay? It's not the point. The point is you create narratives and you only eliminate them when you have data, information, or personal experience that says eliminate them. Other than that, you don't eliminate them. Now, the information, the data that you get could add another narrative, okay? That's fine. But when you build your narratives, you're dealing with possibilities. Thereby, you learn to watch the news according to possible narratives, not sitting there saying, I have one narrative, this is what I believe, and then trying to arrange the news to support your narrative. That's what we do. We end up owning our own belief system. And what I'm saying to you is we all can't be Gosling, okay? Where he understood the data, knew the information cold, and took advantage of it. On the other hand, right, we will never have the personal experience given where we are. We're just not in the mix like, people on Wall Street are. But that doesn't mean that we can't look at data, accept the information, and apply it to our narratives. So when I come out with my narratives, I am not saying this is happening. I am not saying it's probably happening. I am saying there are narratives that I'm monitoring to see which one is the one or the two or the three that actually happen. That's it. So like and follow, give me your comments, and then I'll follow up probably over the weekend with a couple of my narratives. Thank you very much.